After attacking the fairy princess, 7 arrogant princes are turned into dwarves, and only true love's kiss can save them from this curse. Today we will recap the story of the 2019 movie, Red Shoes and the 7 Dwarfs. On Fairy Tale Island, catastrophes and accidents happen all the time. To solve the most diverse types of problems, the people usually call upon the fearless 7, the greatest superheroes in the whole kingdom. However, everything changes when this small group defeats the evil dragon and saves the princess. They think they have rescued a witch because of the woman's grotesque appearance. Thus, the princes attack her, and this mistake is very costly. That was not a witch, but the fairy princess. To teach them a lesson, the princess curses them, and since then, every time someone looks at the fearless 7, they turn into green dwarfs. The only way to break this curse is to earn a kiss from the most beautiful woman on Fairy Tale Island. But with this appearance, the mission will not be easy at all. Months later, Regina walks through her castle to the room where her magic tree lives. Instead of apples, that tree produces little red shoes, which are to fulfill the witch's greatest wish. Ever since she began to age, her greatest ambition has been to achieve beauty and eternal youth. However, although she has tried dozens of shoes, none of them have been helpful in fulfilling her goal. Furious, the woman throws the pair of shoes away and orders her servants to get rid of them. That night, Snow White breaks into the room looking for clues as to the whereabouts of her father. She is searching the room when she hears the door open. One of the wooden bears appears on a flying broom to check if the place is empty and finds the rope in the window. He realizes that it shouldn't be there, but decides to ignore the object. When the creature leaves, Snow White, who is hiding under the table, gets up and accidentally hits her head. Just then, a secret hiding place is revealed, and in it is the diary of her father, the White King. In the book, the man reveals that he wishes the girl's mother could see the beautiful young woman she has become. After the queen's death, the White King married Regina, a beautiful woman who everyone said was a witch. However, with that beautiful appearance, he did not believe that she could be a sorceress, until strange things began to appear. The first suspicious object was a shadowy mirror that grew like a tree. Suddenly, the people around the castle began to disappear, and then the king became suspicious of his wife. One night he saw, with his own eyes, Regina talking to a tree and became convinced that his beautiful wife was really a witch. Immediately, he sent Snow White away and went to confront the woman. That same day, the king was pursued by the cursed mirror, but had time to write one last note in his diary before he was captured. In it, the White King asks his daughter to find the 7 fearless ones, for they will help her save the kingdom. After reading everything written in the book, Snow White spots the apple tree and walks towards it. When Regina enters the room, she finds a beautiful young girl wearing her little red shoes and orders her subordinates to capture the girl. However, Snow White takes a flying broomstick and manages to escape from the witch's clutches. Seconds later, the wishing tree begins to wither and dies soon after. Furious, Regina pays a visit to her magic mirror and asks who is the most beautiful woman in the whole kingdom. The mirror then replies that the most beautiful of all is the girl who wears the red shoes. The witch asks what that young woman's name is, but the mirror can't answer. So the woman orders the bears to do the dirty work and distribute wanted posters in every town in the kingdom. Regina states that she is feeling her power going away and her face is getting more and more wrinkled. So the mirror suggests that she ask for help from someone who also has something to gain by finding the young woman, and advises the woman to pay a visit to Prince Average. Meanwhile, the fearless 7 walk through the forest as they think up a new plan to find the most beautiful princess on Fairy Tale Island. Just then, they spot a girl flying and she ends up falling right next to their house, which is a few meters ahead. When they get there, they find a trail of destruction on the ground and spot a magic broom. In that instant, the superheroes become convinced that they are dealing with a witch and prepare for battle. However, when they open the door to the house, the little green dwarfs are surprised to find the most beautiful young woman they have ever seen. Hans appears from behind and doesn't see the girl's face, so he uses a frying pan to attack her and Snow White faints. When she wakes up, the dwarves reveal that they are the residents of that house. The girl asks forgiveness for trespassing and asks who is that young woman appearing in the mirror. Confused, the dwarves claim that this is her reflection, and Snow White can hardly recognize herself in her new look. When the little green people ask her name, the young woman introduces herself as Princess Red Shoe. Then the dwarves introduce themselves, and she is surprised to discover that they have the same names as the fearless 7. The young woman reveals that she is looking for them so that they can help her find her father. Upon hearing this, Merlin states that the superheroes are booked solid and promises that he and his friends will help her in this quest. In the castle of the neighboring kingdom, Prince Average asks his guards which princesses have confirmed their presence at his birthday party. When he discovers that they have all made up excuses not to attend, the young man despairs, for he does not understand why he is so unpopular. Then Regina enters his chamber and the security guards try to throw her out. However, the woman uses her powers to evade the guards and the prince realizes that she is a witch. Regina says that Average would be much more popular if he celebrated his birthday with a beautiful woman by his side. The boy agrees with this statement, so she proposes a deal. The prince needs to find the young lady who stole the red shoes and invite her to his party. As a reward for the indication, the witch will get her shoes back. Immediately, the boy accepts the proposal and soon begins the preparations for his party. That night, Snow White draws a picture of her father to help in the search and realizes that the king will not recognize her with that new appearance. In that instant, she tries to remove her shoes, but finds it difficult to get them off her feet. Relieved, she lies down on the bed. However, she soon needs to put them back on, because Jack appears at her door to invite her to have her skin moisturized. The young woman claims to be very tired and says she is going to sleep. When she looks out the window, she sees someone outside and believes that man to be her father. Meanwhile, Merlin is in the library studying a new type of spell. He is about to pick up a book when Jack opens the door and the boy turns into a little green monster. When his friend leaves, Merlin turns back into a human, for his curse causes him and his colleagues to turn into dwarves only when there is someone looking at them. Looking out the window, the boy sees Red Shoe running toward the forest and decides to go after her. The girl calls out for her father, but is surprised by a giant rabbit made of wood. At that moment, Merlin appears and uses a spell to electrocute the animal as they flee. They run hand in hand, but the monster approaches. Merlin then asks Little Red Shoe to keep running and, no matter what happens, never look back. Even against her will, the young woman decides to follow the dwarf's directions and leaves. At that moment, Merlin turns back into a human and uses his magic papers to cast spells against the rabbit. However, before he can make his first attack, the girl decides to go back to help him and tries to attract the animal's attention. Merlin then turns into a little green dwarf and is trampled by the creature. Then Arthur appears with his sword and manages to knock the rabbit down. When Little Red Shoe is safe, the boy pretends to be dying and asks for a kiss goodbye. However, Hans and Jack arrive to unmask their friend. Minutes later, a giant robot appears and the dwarves prepare for battle, but soon discover that the machine is being controlled by the triplets, Pino, Noki, and Kyo. When Merlin shows up, the group walks back home and Arthur states that he will always be available to protect Red Shoe. As an act of gratitude, he asks the girl to give him a kiss, but instead the princess slaps the dwarf and continues on her way. That night, Arthur meets with the other 6 fearless ones to plot a search plan for Red Shoe's father. The next morning, the girl distributes her drawings to her friends and they all walk toward town while Merlin stays home to watch over the giant rabbit they have captured. When it reaches a certain point in the forest, the group splits up to optimize the search and Arthur leads the princess to Excalibur. The boy plans to demonstrate his great strength by taking out the sword, for he believes that this will win the heart of the Red Shoe. However, to his surprise, the young woman takes the sword before he does and Arthur can hardly believe his eyes. Then the young woman returns the sword to its rightful place and the dwarf tries desperately to snatch it back. Frustrated, the boy leaves, and Merlin has a brilliant idea. He grabs some carrots and uses the food as bait to lead the giant rabbit into town. Meanwhile, Red Shoe and Arthur split up to seek information regarding the whereabouts of the White King. Wherever she goes, the young woman enchants everyone with her beauty. No one knows about her father, but everyone tries to please her. When she meets Arthur, she realizes that the boy is still not over the fact that he cannot remove the sword. So, the girl offers to go back there and remove Excalibur for him. Upon hearing this, the boy rejoices again and continues his mission to find the king. While walking through town, Red Shoes comes across a wanted sign and sees her face is stamped on it. Suddenly, Prince Average's security guards start chasing her, and the young woman has to hide. Trapped, she decides to remove her shoes and return to her original form, as this is the only way to avoid being captured. Meanwhile, Merlin arrives in town and some guards approach him to ask if the dwarf has seen the poster girl. Just then, he realizes that Red Shoe is in trouble. As she is about to leave the alley where she has been hiding, Snow White is approached by a group of guards who steal her shoe and make fun of her, saying that those little shoes will never fit on her feet. Furious, the young woman attacks one of the men and ends up being cornered. At that moment, Merlin appears and, after knocking out the guards, hands the shoe to the young woman. Minutes later, she puts on her shoes and goes to meet her friends. Just then, Snow White is again pursued by the evil twins, but Merlin manages to save her with the help of the giant rabbit. During her escape, The young woman drops her drawing and the security guards discover that she is looking for the king. When they arrive at a safe place, Merlin asks why there are guards chasing the girl, and she replies that they are after her magic shoes. Frustrated, she decides to return home, with no hope that she will be able to find her father. Then, Merlin has an idea and uses the flower bed to leave a message for the White King. Upon seeing her friends act, Red Shoe thanks him and approaches his face. Merlin also approaches her to kiss her, but finds that she only wanted to blow the petals off his face. Later, the twins find the note left by Merlin and discover the girl's location. Regina's bears were also there hiding in the bushes, and decide to go find the princess on Risky Rock. While picking carrots, Merlin remembers the moment he was almost kissed by Red Shoe and realizes that he is in love with her. At that moment, Arthur appears to try to prevent the boy from sabotaging his relationship with the young woman, and both are captured. Meanwhile, Hans prepares a beautiful dessert to win Red Shoe's heart, and Jack tries to lure her with a diamond ring. Suddenly, they hear a pronouncement from Prince Average, who orders them to hand over the beautiful maiden. Otherwise, Merlin and Arthur will be eliminated. In order to save her friends, Little Red Shoe gives herself up. She orders the prince to release the dwarves, and then punches him. The boy then orders the guards to take the girl, and the four fearless ones team up to rescue her. They use their special abilities to defeat their enemies, but a few minutes after the battle begins, they are eventually defeated. Jack uses his invisibility cloak to rescue Red Shoe, and they both manage to escape, but are pursued and end up being cornered. At this point, the young woman has the idea to use the invisibility cloak to escape, and the two of them fall on top of Merlin. The triplets are in their workshop working on yet another invention when they hear noise coming from outside and decide to go out with their giant robot to fight alongside their companions. They appear just as their friends were about to be defeated and attack the guards. The twins try to take the robot down, but end up being taken for a ride. When they are several meters high, the machine comes back down to the ground and knocks down the other enemies. The group celebrates their victory, but it is still too soon. Just when they think they have defeated the average army, the guards appear with 2 cannons and destroy the robot. Red Shoe almost gets hit, but Merlin manages to save her. The boy realizes that the sphere has caused a crack in the house and asks his friends to go inside while the false facade falls on top of the enemy army. Later, Merlin and Red Shoes celebrate their victory, and he tells them that he can't wait for the young girl to meet his true self. The boy claims that he can no longer stand being short, chubby, and green. However, the princess says that none of this matters, because he is a wonderful person and she likes him exactly as he is. During the conversation, Red Shoes decides to reveal her true form, and tries to remove her shoes to return to her original appearance. However, even with Merlin's help, she cannot get rid of them and eventually gives up on this idea. When he returns to the castle, Average is surprised by the presence of the witch, who is there to pick her shoes. The prince then tells her that his mission was delayed because of the dwarves who were there to hinder him. To help him capture the girl, Regina orders him and his men to bite off a piece of her apple. As they do so, they are transformed into sinister creatures made of wood. The next morning, Red Shoe and the 7 dwarfs work to rebuild the facade of their house. After painting it, they prepare to continue their mission to find the White King, and the triplets present their newest invention, a paper printing machine. They make several copies of the princess's drawing and plan to distribute them throughout the city. Merlin then uses the device to print dozens of copies of his magic papers. To distribute the posters at an even greater speed, the dwarf has the idea of using the broom to allow the robot to fly again. The couple flies over the entire forest and observes everything above the clouds. During the flight, Merlin is distracted by his thoughts and the robot ends up crashing into a tree. The couple then ends up in the forest and gets separated from their friends. Now they must find their way back to the Risky Rock. As gratitude for everything Merlin had done for her up to that point, Red Shoe takes one of his magic papers and makes a lucky charm for her friend. The little dwarf kisses the lipstick mark in hopes of breaking the curse, but his strategy doesn't work. Then they finally kiss, and Merlin believes he has won his body back. He asks the princess to keep her eyes closed and says that now she will meet the real Merlin. However, when Red Shoe opens her eyes, she sees the same little green dwarf, and the boy realizes that he is still the same. He does not understand why the kiss did not work and intends to make another attempt. However, the couple is interrupted by an evil creature that is there to destroy them. Fortunately, the pair manages to escape by falling into a crack between the rocks, but when they come out of their hiding place, the monster is there waiting for them. The escape continues and a new enemy appears. They are about to be cornered, but Merlin uses his spell to get rid of those wooden giants. Suddenly, a third monster arrives for the hunt, and Merlin must come up with a plan to eliminate them. The boy manages to knock one of them into the sea, but the situation only gets worse. Instead of chasing after them, the other two monsters start throwing rocks at them in an attempt to crush them. With no other way out, Merlin asks Red Shoe to close her eyes, and thus he is able to recover his original form. Now that he is stronger, he is able to defeat those monsters, but in order to do so, the girl must run away without looking back. In doing so, Merlin is able to fight off his enemies with ease and manages to take down his second target. The third monster is even stronger than the other two and manages to strike a blow to the boy. However, Merlin does not give up on saving his beloved and destroys the bridge, eliminating the last enemy. However, before he falls into the water, the creature pulls Merlin under and they both fall into the sea. Seeing the boy in danger, Red Shoe jumps after him to save him. She finds the dwarf trapped under a rock, but is not strong enough to save him. So the young woman decides to take off her shoes and manages to lift the stone. When they are both safe on the surface, the princess faints and is held by the little bears. Regina follows the situation through her mirror and is surprised to discover that it was Snow White who had been wearing her shoes all this time. That night, Merlin discovers the princess's true appearance and remembers that he saved her when some guards were trying to capture her. The young woman realizes the boy's disappointment in finding out who she really is and feels ashamed. She lies down to try to sleep. Hours later, the fire that was keeping them warm goes out and Merlin goes to get more sticks. Seeing the boy leaving, Snow White believes she has been abandoned because of her appearance and puts her shoes back on. She walks aimlessly through the forest, remembering the good times she had with Merlin. Minutes later, they meet and the dwarf gives the girl an apple. Just as Snow White is about to eat it, the real Merlin appears and the witch reveals herself. Regina captures the girl and the prince goes to save her. He asks the bears to call the other dwarves and make several copies of their magic paper. When they receive the news about Snow White, the dwarves immediately prepare for battle and Arthur goes to get Excalibur. The triplets destroy the stone so that their friend can get the sword. Meanwhile, the rabbit takes Merlin to a secret entrance. While the boy goes in search of his beloved, Regina tries to convince Snow White to eat the apple. Minutes later, Merlin is captured and the witch threatens to eliminate him. To prevent him from suffering, Snow White agrees to eat the apple, and gradually her body turns into a tree. In that instant, the boy is taken back to the room of the magic mirror and tries to convince it to take the shoes and let the young woman go. However, the mirror informs him that the shoes feed on the desire of their wearer. And when this happens, the bond is permanent. This means that Snow White will never be able to take off those shoes again. Merlin reveals that she was able to take them off when she jumped into the sea, and the mirror states that this happened because the desire the young girl had to save him was greater than the desire to be beautiful. But now that she has eaten the apple, the princess will turn into an apple tree and, in the morning, give birth to a new pair of shoes, allowing Regina to become the most beautiful woman in the kingdom. Upon hearing this, Merlin uses his spell to break free and tries to escape, but the mirror captures the boy again and intends to stretch him until she dies. Just then, the other 6 fearless appear to save their friend and fire a shot into the mirror. While the triplets are fighting the cursed tree, the bears hand the magic papers to Merlin and the boy sets out to attack alongside his companions. Arthur uses Excalibur to cut down the branches and Jack breaks the magic mirror while Merlin goes after Snow White riding the giant rabbit. Regina was about to achieve her victory, but the prince appears and takes her with him to the precipice. The boy uses his magic papers to create an energy bomb and ensure that the witch does not survive the fall. As soon as the woman loses her life, all the victims of her curse return to normal, including Snow White. The girl is extremely happy to find her father again and asks where Merlin is. When she finds out that the boy sacrificed himself to save her, the young girl despairs and her father tries to console her. The triplets retrieve their friend's body and deliver it to the princess. Before he dies, the dwarf states that Snow White is the most wonderful woman in the world. He survived the fall because he was carrying his lucky charm, but unfortunately he could not resist his injuries. As a last farewell, the princess kisses Merlin and affirms that she loves him. At that moment, the green dwarf turns into a handsome prince and Snow White discovers that he is one of the 7 fearless ones. From that moment on, the couple never separates and announces their love to the entire kingdom through a wedding ceremony. So, what did you think of this movie? Let us know in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like it and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.